Matter how many people claim that their judgment of others is not based on race, evidence suggests the opposite to be true. Now, how else do you explain the public support for Luigi Mangione, a white man, but condemnation for Rodney Hinton Jr., a black man? Now, if you remember, Luigi is charged with the fatal shooting of an executive, insurance executive, um, last fall. Here's a picture of Luigi. And some people in the public domain put him on a pedestal as a modern day avenger for good against evil insurance companies. They even started talking about how more about his looks instead of what it was that he did. On the other hand, Hinton is charged with using his car to end the life of a law enforcement officer. And let's take a look at Rodney Hinton. This happened just a couple of days ago in Cincinnati. Rodney Hinton Jr. used his car to run over a law enforcement officer to avenge the death of his son because his son had been killed by a Cincinnati police officer a few days before that. So let's take a look in case you missed it. Here's Rodney Hinton Jr. So that's what we're talking about tonight. A cop in Cincinnati shot and killed Hinton's son. His son's name was Ryan. He was about 18 years old. And this happened a few days before his father, Rodney Hinton Jr., ended the life of another law enforcement officer. Now, the man Luigi is charged with ending his life was not directly responsible for Luigi's family's insurance claim woes. That guy was a symbol for what is wrong with healthcare and the insurance industry. The sheriff's deputy that Hinton is accused of running over with his car is not the same law enforcement officer who killed Hinton's son. He is a symbol of crooked ass cops who get away with killing people, especially black men. A prime example of all of this is the cops that were just acquitted in the Tyree Nichols case in the state court. They were acquitted of causing Nichols' death when clearly the evidence showed that everybody saw throughout the United States and possibly around the world. The evidence showed that the beating that they gave to Nichols was the cause of his death. Now, luckily, these cops in Memphis already had been convicted of civil rights violations of Nichols. And that sentence, I think they got like 15 to 20 years each, should keep them in federal prison for decades. And I say sure because nothing these days is for certain, but they've already been held accountable for that. But I digress. That's just an example of what can happen. You think just because it seems so cut and dry that things are going to go to court and it's going to turn out a certain way, and then you realize that based on whatever evidence or however the attorneys make it turn out to be, that a family doesn't get the justice that they thought they were going to get. So back to the racial divide. Luigi allegedly killed on principle. Hinton allegedly killed on principle. Same principle, polar opposite level of public support. Back to these killer cops. The cops at the scene of Hinton's son's shooting, they claim his son was caught fleeing from a stolen vehicle. That's turning out not to be true. People who know the story in Cincinnati said that the vehicle was not stolen. In fact, it was scheduled to be repossessed. And so we know that possession is 9/10 of the law, right? So the vehicle that Hinton, Ryan Hinton, the young 18-year-old, and his three friends, they were in this vehicle that was in the possession of the family, one of the family of the guys who was in the car with Hinton, or who Hinton was in the car with. And so when police officers said they were in a stolen car, it wasn't as if they saw the car on the street and stole it and didn't know who it belonged to and they were riding around in it, that type of scenario. But that's the narrative they would have you have the public to believe. That's not what was going on. So the vehicle was in the midst of being repossessed by the finance company because of for non-payment, and it was still being driven by the family member or the guy, one of the young guys whose family members had the vehicle. Okay, so that's one lie or one deviation from the truth that cops put out there. The junior Hinton, Ryan Hinton, and his three friends were in the vehicle. It belonged to one of the family members, and that's what happened. So then the cops show up to the scene. Secondly, the cops said when Hinton's son and his friends who were in the vehicle tried to run from the vehicle, that Hinton's son Ryan pointed a weapon at one of the cops, and that's when he was shot. Now, that's the story that they're putting out there to villainize young Ryan Hinton. But that also is turning out to not be true. That's another lie. And it's being proven by the video, the cop cam video that has been released. The video released to the public didn't show the real-time sequence of the action. It was blurred out, first of all. The version during the news conference when the police chief was going over explaining what was happening, they always stop the video before the actual shooting. And then the timing of the shooting is different than what they would have you to believe. So it essentially was an altered video, or they didn't show you the full video, raw video of what happened. So it's been revealed that his son, Rodney Hinton's son, never pointed a weapon at anyone. In fact, the video, or the frames of the video that I saw, and I'm going to try to show it to you momentarily, Hinton's son was running away from the cops when he was shot in his back 4 times. Okay, so the cops are going, or they have said, oh, the police officer feared for his life. Now, I didn't see, based on what I saw in the video or the still frames from the video, I didn't see anyone holding a weapon. But cops say, oh, he had a weapon and he pointed it and that's why he got shot. That's not what the video shows. Okay, so Hinton, the father, and his family, they view the cop cam video ahead of the public release. So they got to see, I'm assuming, the raw footage of the cop cam video. And that caused Hinton, in my opinion, that caused Hinton, the father, to avenge his son's unjustified killing by the cops. Okay, so let's go over this. And if you have any comments on it, because it's interesting to realize, again, the whole reason why I'm talking about this is because when Luigi Mangione shot the insurance agent, the insurance executive, and unalived him, there were more people, 90% of the people who commented and went public with their comments said, oh, he's a hero. Oh, I understand why he did that, because they had their own story, personal story to tell about how the insurance company was not doing right by them. In fact, I'm one of those people who had a personal experience with a family member dealing with insurance that didn't do right by my mother. And so, along with millions of other people who chimed in. But now the tables have come to a Black man avenging the death of his son, when we know from history that when cops shoot someone, they always seem to either one get away with it, or if they are charged with something and they have to spend time behind bars, which is rare, they never spend all the time if they've been sentenced. It's always, oh, they did a year, they do a year or two, and then they get out. So if it was your son, how would you handle that, knowing that it's likely that the cops who killed your child, your son, are going to get away with it? So that's where we are right now. Now, here's why I think Rodney Hinton came to the conclusion that he did. Um, so I'm going to share with you a video that I came across, and this was just, you can find it yourself as well. But I just did a search for the cop cam video in Cincinnati in the Ryan Hinton shooting. And every time I looked at the video, the news conference that showed the cop cam video always stopped at a certain point to, and they had across the screen, cop felt threatened. So they're giving you a video and they're giving you an emotion from someone so you can come to the conclusion, oh, he felt threatened and that's why he shot him at that point in the video. But let's take a look if I can bring it up. Let me go in and get the video and show it to you. If you haven't already, be sure to like, share, and subscribe so that when I post new videos, you'll be the first to know. So there was someone, I'm taking this video footage from someone who has a YouTube page, Richard Taylor, because he did a good job of illustrating what was going on, and I want to share this with you. So we're looking at a video. So this is the video of the this is the of still frame of the video of Ryan Hinton running between two dumpsters, and you see the police officer's arm above. So it's his version, the one who actually did the shooting of Ryan Hinton. Now, according to what Cincinnati police officers and the department have been putting out to the public, this is the point where Ryan was shot, we're being told. Now, even if this was the point where Ryan was shot, he clearly is not facing the police officer, and I don't even see a weapon, but the video was blurry. Okay, so if he had a weapon, where is it? But let's just stick with his positioning of where he is running. He's running away. His body is pointed away from the cop who did the shooting. Now, every time the police department did a press conference or news conference or show this video, this is where they stop the video. This is where they want you to believe that Ryan was shot. But it's more, there is another scene that shows this is actually where he got shot, when he was actually a few feet from the trash dumpsters, and that's where he got shot 4 times in the back. So this clearly shows you that he was not facing the police officer. In fact, he was headed in the opposite direction of the police officer. So how is it that the police officer could feel threatened for his life when somebody is running away from him? And there is no video or picture of a weapon except on the ground later on after the fact. So I believe this is why Rodney Hinton Jr., Ryan's father, decided that, you know what, they are about to railroad my son, and they're going to paint him, as they started to do, as a villain, saying that he tried to shoot a cop, when he and his family, the father and the family, saw the video, saw the positioning of when his son was shot and killed, and made the decision to do what he did. So now, why not seek justice in the courts, you might ask? Well, here's why. There are too many cases where justice through the courts is denied. And in this current political climate, through the courts, and where the criminals and politicians and cops, the lines are blurred, you can see why someone like Rodney Hinton would doubt his family's chance of getting justice. And so that might have caused him to go temporarily insane and run over another law enforcement officer who came in, that first one that he would come into contact with. Now, a lot of you might say, well, that guy had nothing to do with it, and why should he pay? I mean, that's it. That's what avenging a death is about. You are representing, and we've said multiple times, it's the bad cops that make it bad for the good cops. And so, you know, if your son or your daughter was shot and killed, and you later came up on the video and realized, wow, they just did that without justification, what would you do? So in this instance, Rodney Hinton Jr. felt it was his duty to avenge his son's death by, and I don't know him, and I'm just going off of what I do know about the case, allegedly going and finding someone who represented the same agency or the same line of work as the person who did that to his son. And so, if a good cop realizes that he could be held accountable for what a bad cop did, then the good cops might try to do more to make sure the bad cops are not there. You just call it like it is. But again, now Hinton is being called a bad parent, and his son a bad kid, or he was 18, so a bad young man. Nobody asked Luigi about his criminal background. Nobody questioned his criminal background. Nobody questioned his parents and if they were good parents or negligent parents. He just got the hero treatment. But when it comes to Hinton, he's being called a bad parent. He should have done better, or his son wouldn't have been there. There's just a thin line between all of this, because who has not been in a situation where you end up in a vehicle and you just assume that the person driving the vehicle is their vehicle. You don't come with a whole bunch of questions, especially if you know the person and you might have seen them in the vehicle before. You just assume all is good. You've seen them in a vehicle before. You don't know that it's being repossessed. You don't know what the situation is. They might have just offered you a ride. So things happen, and young people, as well as not so young people, might find themselves in a position where you end up in the middle of something that you don't know what's going on. And instead of you trying to explain it, if everybody gets out and jumps out of the car and starts running, you just jump out of the car and start running too. They can't catch everybody, you might be thinking. So there are a lot of scenarios as to how Ryan Hinton could have ended up in this situation. And so far be it from me, and it should be far from you to determine that he was a bad kid or bad 18-year-old, and that his parents weren't doing right by him, because things happen. And what we want to be clear about is his positioning in that video showed clearly that he was not pointing a weapon at anybody. It shows that he was running away from the cop. And we all know from experience, whether or not you want to admit it, that cops have been on the wrong side of justifiable shootings before. And so why wait until it's your child to do something about it? Try to understand what's going on now and put yourself in that in a position to where you try to make those people, those cops, not be in the position that they're in, so that they don't harm anybody's child or anybody, no matter if you're a child or an adult or an old person or a white person or a black person. It just doesn't matter. Law enforcement officers have a tendency to shoot first and then make the narrative fit their agenda after the fact. And nobody wants to be in that position. So if you find yourself supporting Luigi Mangione for what he did, but you find yourself condemning Rodney Hinton Jr. for what he did, you have to ask yourself, why is that? Some of us, we already know the answer. To find out more about the things that I care about, you can go to the written version of my journal. That's at eurweb.com. Thank you so much and have a super day.